All right. Hello, everybody in Facebook land. We are the Podguyz Podcast, bringing it to you live as we do every Monday, 10:15 Eastern Standard Time. I'm Tony Cass.
Kevin Neary here.
Of course, we are still missing the Le Picasso. Where in the world is Sparky San Diego?
Where is Sparky? If you guessed hanging out with the woods with some Boy Scouts, yeah, you're actually right. That's the weird part. He's hanging out with
100%.
a volunteer Boy Scout thing, and he is probably the only person you should trust out there with your Boy Scouts.
Ever. Yeah, totally. And even with the name Sparky.
Yeah. Even though he almost did set the forest on fire one time, a talking bear, while he was high on peyote, told him, "Don't do that shit anymore, Sparky."
See, all it takes is one time.
Yeah.
Son of a bitches. Well, guys, we do have a great guest tonight. You may know him, you may not know him, but you are going to learn to love him. Coming from the main streets of Scranton, Pennsylvania, of course, we have the Outlaw Steve Corbett.
What, are you supposed to say hello now? Oh, nice.
There he goes. Yeah.
Hello. Your microphone works, sir. There's no time to clam up this quick.
Well, hold on. We got the best known for the Steve Corbett Show on WILK 103.1. He was also doing West Coast stuff. Journalist, poet, author, you name it. He's done it. You better listen. Right, Steve? Can we get a you better listen out of you?
Better listen.
Yeah.
That was it.
He's best known from the Times Leader.
7 years after being fired from that radio station, I still have people on the street who yell out their car windows, "You better listen." Little kids who weren't even born yelling, "You better listen." And they told me when they fired me, "We're moving in a new direction because no one's listening to your show," which just wasn't true. Why 7 years later would people still, "You better listen" me out the window if they weren't listening to the show? Now you tell me that, but that's neither here nor there because life goes on. Que sera, sera.
Well, for people that aren't familiar with the show's format, the Steve Corbett Show was all about live interaction with Steve himself to debate what subjects he had lined up for the day, which was normally local news, international news. It was, you had to screen some callers out there because I'm sure you had a lot of, how did you ever screen those callers, Steve?
We didn't. I told Johnny Lucas, who's a great man to have on the board, bring them all in. We took them all in. We didn't scream anybody out. Occasionally, we had, I can think of one in particular, and I just didn't want to deal with him because he was a wannabe. He wanted to be what I was doing. And I'm not going to let you rain on my parade. I welcome you no matter what your position is. I took them all in. You have a clan granddaddy dragon, bring him on. I want to pick his brain. I want to know why he thinks gasoline is better than kerosene when you're burning a cross in front of a church. The point being is some people couldn't handle that. But here was the issue. If you started to insult me personally and not discuss the issues, no matter how ragged and horrific the issues were, then I was going to step to you because I was better than my callers at throwing it back. And then they got their feelings hurt. And then they called the bosses, and then they called the advertisers. And then the great vaunted freedom of speech in America was put aside for whatever small local yokel business was able to make some money from the radio station. And that's what local news talk radio is, whether it's here or whether it's anywhere else in the country. News talk radio, by and large, is a wasteland. You're better off doing something else.
Now, Steve, I don't like to interrupt you while you're on a roll.
But
here it is. Here's question number one right out the gate. How did it all start for you, sir?
How did what all start for me?
How did journalism start for you?
What gave you the passion to want to be the journalist that you are today?
When I was a senior in high school, in rural America, Perry County, where the Appalachian Trail, not Appalachian, the Appalachian Trail runs right down the middle of Duncannon's Market Street. I live 5 miles from the Appalachian Trail in Cove, Pennsylvania. I was isolated. And as a result, I had to feed my head, like Grace Slick said, with the Jefferson airplane, and I had to be prepared for whatever was coming. There were a lot of good old boy rednecks I grew up with, and that's why I understand them very, very well.
Steve, can we set a backdrop? What year is this?
1969.
1969. It's the Cold War era.
Not Cold War era, heavy duty Nam, Vietnam, the draft. People my age were getting drafted and sent to Vietnam to shoot and kill and die.
Sent a man to the moon.
Well, that's the same year, in July. That's correct. A lot of things happened the year before, in 1968. Martin Luther King got killed. Bobby Kennedy got killed. A lot of issues took place. And I was a senior in high school. I played 3 varsity sports. I was a good athlete. But I also was a thinker. And I also wasn't willing to just accept what was being shoved down my throat and put together a newspaper called the Hairy Messenger. And the Hairy Messenger addressed issues in the school, in the society. I was 17 years old. I'm 73 years old now. So journalism got its start on green paper, handed out as the little kids got off the school bus from junior high to high school by me, a role model, somebody that they cheered on the football field, on the basketball court, as I was throwing a javelin, undefeated for 2 years. I was also a journalist. I was telling them, challenge authority. Don't listen to all of these old people.
Fight the man.
Fight the man indeed. That's no kidding, brother. That is no kidding. Because right now, you guys, you better fight the man and the woman and whatever other sexual identity comes to take away real freedom.
There's a lot of them we got to get through. There's 54 different sexual identities we all have to give a straight punch in the face to. We got to go up to them, punch them in the face, say, I don't know what you are. Well, you just got punched in the... We're fighting a man.
This is where you're going in another direction.
Yeah.
I'm a 4th degree black belt in Aikido Jiu-Jitsu. I'm an instructor. I'm a 3rd degree black belt in Aikido. I am an advocate of nonviolence. I am someone who does not advocate punching.
Oh, I meant metaphorically punch him in the face.
Metaphorical punching of the
metaphoric punches in the
I didn't
face.
say that. And when you say what you said, I immediately will step in and I will tell you, here's what you're dealing with, brother. You're dealing with somebody like me who's not going to stand by and let you punch somebody in the face because of their sexual identity. But metaphorically, you ought to smarten up on that one too. But we'll deal with that.
Speaking of sexual identity, the Olympics had a little bit of a sexual identity faux.
Yeah.
Are you informed at all about that or no?
Completely.
So people are calling this woman a man, and she's
Correct.
not a man.
That's
She's
correct.
a woman. She's in. If you've ever seen somebody in physical fighting condition as a female boxer, I'll give you one. Muhammad Ali's daughter never was called a man. Somewhat in the same physical fighting condition.
I have women in the dojo where I've trained for many, many years who could take you out. All right. I don't know what you weigh. But...
Oh, I don't get in any kind of like fighting shape at all there, Steve. I don't know if you noticed at all. I'm not much of I'm not much of a gym rat right here.
This was turned into an attack on a person for not being a woman when in effect, by every rule and regulation and every piece of information I could read and I could find, is in fact a woman who has lived as a woman, who is not a trans woman, coming from Algeria, where you can't be a trans person. I don't know if it's the death penalty. But
it is the death penalty.
It is the death penalty. 47 seconds. You know what? 47 seconds. If you saw her opponent, she wasn't in fighting shape. She wasn't in her class of shape.
Really not a bad fighter. She's Italian, and she did apologize to the woman who basically clocked her. And boxing is a brutal sport. I fought as an international amateur in 1972 in Dublin, Ireland, in the National Stadium. I understand boxing. My dad come out of the Manuka section of Scranton as a potential, what they called in those years after World War II, the Great White Hope. My dad was chosen, James J. Corbett, the same name as the first Marquess of Queensberry heavyweight champion, Gentleman Jim. My dad, James J. Corbett, same name, was picked as a Great White Hope to dethrone Joe Louis and become the heavyweight champion of the world. So I come from that boxing stock. My Uncle Jake promoted fights in Scranton. And it's a brutal, vicious sport. I do not endorse boxing at this stage of the game. I think that it hurts more than it helps. And the facts can back me up. But you're right. These are issues that people decide to argue without having the benefit of the facts. And then they will tell you when you give them the facts, that's not true. That's a dude. That's a dude.
Yeah, I think it's because we're living exactly in a read the headline only world without the rest of the story being even cared for. So once you live in that type of environment for so long, people will just take the first glib that they see and run with it as if it's any form of the truth.
Reading is on. I don't like to make the comparison to on a resuscitator because that's serious business. Reading is in trouble. People don't read like they should. And then we get into reading comprehension. How well do you read if you read? And that's not doing real well either. Not to mention the people who are bona fide illiterate, who can't read. I had a guy comment on my Facebook post the other day, and the comment didn't make a lot of sense. And I responded to him by saying, that's not real clear. I'm not real clear on what you're telling me. And he came back and said to me that he has some difficulty with writing. He left school in the 9th grade. And I responded in a way that said, you'd be surprised at the number of people who have that difficulty, who don't express themselves because they can't write. And then on the other hand, you have a lot of big feeling know-it-alls who are walking around like they're as informed as anybody, no more than their college professors. And they can read, but they can't think real well.
That is fair, actually.
It goes hand in hand.
Can I add this in there as well?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are people, and you're right on the nose. You're right on the nose about something. The amount of people that are misinformed about inaccurate information, I think, far outweighs the amount of accurate information that is available to someone who would seek it out. And the only reason why I say that is because in this particular story, there were two sides to a story, and only one side got out in particular and was a pushed narrative for people's agenda. And not even to say that this happens a lot. And I'm sure you see it in journalism, when one side of a story beats you to the punch and they push their narrative on top of that story, people will begin to believe the first person to the front of the line.
Yeah, Tony, I totally agree. The louder, the dumber, the more ignorant seems to push its way to the front of the line, gets in everybody's faces, gets in everybody's Facebook, Instagram algorithms and really gets a lot of people talking. It feels like the old version of Jerry Springer crowd is like back to life to a degree, because that's what gets people clawing at the bits. What's your take on that, Steve?
If you want to be informed, you really need to spend significant time getting the information that is available. Some of the best journalists in the history of the world are working right now. And people don't know it, don't care about it. We subscribe online to the New York Times. We get the hard copy paper every Sunday as well. We subscribe to the Washington Post. We subscribe to the Philadelphia Inquirer. That means we pay. We subscribe to the LA Times. We also avail ourselves of a lot of information online from which we draw information we cross-check to make sure that that information is coming from the best sources available. That takes work. It takes time. It takes intelligence to do that.
And those three particular things, a lot of people do not have.
No, but that's why I've said this many times. Thomas Jefferson said one day, "The masses are asses." Thomas Jefferson. I don't know what the last time was you looked in the Constitution. It's in there in really little print. All right, I'm making that up. It says the masses are asses. I've said that, and people have said to me, Thomas Jefferson. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely said that.
Actually, on your website, it is quoted.
Thomas Jefferson. Probably.
From Thomas Jefferson.
Okay. He's commenting on my stuff. The masses are asses. And it's not like a give me liberty or give me death quote. I don't know where the first person stood up and said, "Hey, the masses are asses." But it's something that makes sense. And as a result, I'll go back real quick to talk radio. Before I got fired, they had a consultant who listened to all the different personalities. And the consultant called me after listening to my show, and she said to me, "You're a lot smarter than your listeners." And I said, "I'm glad you recognize that." And, oh, that's me on my high horse. No, if I'm smarter than you about a particular issue, I am. If you're smarter
and
than
you need to be better informed.
if you want to get in and play my game, okay? But here's the issue that I also find fascinating. I can think of no other job than a journalist, any other job where people consider themselves to be on par with the journalist without any training, without any background, without any education. I would be a damn fool every time someone does something in their job that I marvel at, that I can't do, whether it be a plumber, whether it be someone working a cash register. I briefly worked in a boutique winery in Central Coastal California to get information for my first novel, Blood Red.
By the way, we're going to bring them on the show right now. We have your boss on here.
There he is. Bring him out.
Bring him on. Bring him on.
No.
Ryan Flynn. Come on, let's talk, brother. Good conversation.
Not the Flynn that we have on the show lately, but you know.
And I'm not the person calling him Ryan Phlegm, like he's got some congestion that impedes his ability to recognize brilliance like me. All right. And they know that they want a certain type. They want a certain type. But the point is really simple. People need to be better informed, and America, the dutiful, is not all that well informed.
Steve, which demographic were they trying to specifically get at that you weren't already hitting on all heads?
I think for 1 second I gave any concern for demographic. Do you think that I even thought about that? Do you think that it mattered to me?
I think for 1 second it was there, and it was a fleeting moment.
I feel like the second was there as well.
They came in once and had like some kind of website, some kind of internet something. And they said,
it was like the horns of God, and it was like,
came in and they said, this is you log into this. Yeah, okay, right. And they trained us. I listened to it. Yeah, right. These are trending topics that you can work into your discussion. Trending topics. Now, you guys are far more aware of trending topics than I am, was, or ever would want to be.
You may be correct in that, sir.
I will give you the trending topics because these are the topics that matter to me, that bring you in, so we can talk about it. And if you want to share, if you want to ask questions, and you want to do it respectfully, we'll do it. We can disagree completely. Like,
and you know what? That is the one thing you would do every now and then, where you would address somebody who called in and say, if anybody has a comment on insert name here, agree with them, disagree, call in right now.
I invited all the Republicans during the 2008 campaign, and they loved me in 2008 because I didn't like Barack Obama. Republicans loved me. But then when 2016 came around and Donald Trump reared his ugly head, viper that he is, I didn't like him. But I told him about my experiences. I told him when I met Donald Trump. I told him how he ran away from me in New Hampshire when I merely asked him, how do you expect to secure the border when they had little security? Interesting, especially now that he almost got shot, or he did get shot, or whatever he got. I said to Donald Trump, how do you expect to secure the border? We were this close. When you can't even secure the buffet table here at your breakfast and his scrambled eggs. He turned all red and he looked like he was going to go crazy. And I gave him my big smile and he turned and he ran from me. I told that story 50 times. But then I also told all my Joe Biden stories. And Joe Biden looked worse before he's looked worse recently when we dealt with him locally. I brought it all in. I gave it all to you. I gave you every ounce of observation and analysis I could give you, and I wasn't able to be pigeonholed. And the other thing, this is the way I ended my show. Don't let them scare you. Don't let them buy you. You better listen. They couldn't scare me. None of them could. They couldn't buy me. None of them could. And they still can't.
The outlaw is fighting the establishment.
That's what an outlaw does, man. That's what an outlaw does. There are cultural outlaws among us. We need more of them. You guys can become more outlaws than mainstream. What do you want to do? Just sit around and not that you do this, but your cohorts, some of the people you know who are so impressed with themselves, bring a spark, light a fire. Do that. We need more sparks. Art. Oh, everybody's an artist now. Go ahead.
Now, Steve, I don't know if you know who he is, but he is one of our show's listeners, followers, good friend, Marky Denenbaum.
Yeah, I know who he is.
I like him. I feel like he brings a spark to the area of the city of Scranton in general. I feel like he is lighting quite the fire from within, little by little. Now, he's picking his battles and he's picking, you know, what he's going into, especially from the school board perspective. But, you know what? Seeing anything come from the city of Scranton, which would light a fire anywhere, would be a fucking miracle.
No, here's where he went wrong. He sat with me for like 2 hours. He and Stacy Toy. Okay, they had some kind of a company, and she was then into selling. I don't know what she was selling, but they interviewed me for 2 hours. We had a great interview when he was doing interviews like you guys are doing. He was asking intelligent questions. He wanted to know. That's still available online. I'm sure you can find that. But then Marky Denenbaum seemed to get the idea that he wanted to be a political player. And he wanted to be a conservative political player. And now he's like I don't want to insult the Moonies, okay? But he's so firmly ingrained in this dull conservative group that he hangs with, and he still uses his camera. All right, I'm the chronicler of the conservative movement and the militia and the patriotic food that you can eat for the next 15 years when the left-wing libs come after us. That's where Marky went wrong. He had real good potential. Now he's a yes man for the conservatives, and he's lost the independence you need to be unpredictable. And that's why I'm a dangerous man. I'm independent. I am not ingratiated to anybody. And
now, would you say he's too indebted with the Cartwrights?
No,
as far as like
so he's on the other side. He's on the other side. Cartwright's the Democratic yes man. Marky Denenbaum is more of a Republican conservative, right wing. January 6th, man, was just like a family picnic kind of thing. That's all it was. All right. The white man's militia is nothing more than white man's militia. And we deserve that because we're now oppressed. We're white men and we're oppressed because all these colored people, all these lesbians and these sexual identity types and these that's where they go. And it just is over the top.
I think when we seriously, Steve, when we take a serious look at it, we are living in what seems to be a corporate oligarchy where basically you have very few people with all of the power, all of the money, all the time. And they're watching everybody around them squabble over inconsistencies in the system that they created intentionally. So that way we're all against each other, and we don't pay attention to the ones that started the fire to begin with.
When it comes to isms, I got no time for racism. I got no time for sexism. If I'm any ism, classism is where I'm at, because the class divisions in America are the most dangerous divisions.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
To say the least.
I would say the only ism that actually exists still today is favoritism.
It's one of them. That's one of them. And favoritism cuts across all political parties.
I had recently talked to I'm going to say a senator or House representative. I don't remember exactly what she is. But I'm not gonna leave a name. I'm not gonna name drop this particular person.
From the state, right?
From a state.
Oh, come on, man.
It could be this state, could be the next state.
Like, maybe Sarah Palin. You talked to Sarah Palin? I mean, come on.
We did talk to a Sarah Palin lookalike. We had
Look, I'm not a name dropper. I'm not a name dropper. We'll say the state of Pennsylvania.
State of Pennsylvania, all right.
That is not name dropping. That's accuracy in journalism and truth telling. All right.
There we go.
What did this unknown woman say to you?
Well, this particular representative had told me about the state of political affairs and the washing of hands that is done in modern day politics. And it's not necessarily for the greater bid of men and women, but it is for the greed and popularity of politics in general, which is 100% accurate. 100%. Because one hand that washes the other in the political game nowadays, you have to do a favor to get a favor. And the more favors you do, the more popularity you get. The more popularity they get, the more favors are asked, the more that one hand washes the other. Because if you want something, I want something. And it's a tit for tat.
When do we reach, have we already reached the overboiling point of that? Have we overspilled from the pot of favors and filth and greed, Steve? What's your take on
that? This is not new. You know, you guys go back to the 60s, you guys go back to Vietnam, you guys go back to Nixon and the horrors of that generation. And then you work your way through.
Steve, this is why you're here. Take us back. Paint us a picture, sir.
I'm not sure that the painting of the picture, other than what I've already portrayed, is going to do anybody any good. The old story of history repeating itself.
I think you're right, Steve. You know, human behavior stays ingrained and is very easy to trick the masses, especially when they've been lacking on education, when they've been grouped together in one column in the right. They've made more dummy words. Remember when they used to be liberal and conservative and they still use those definitions incorrectly every time? Then left and right. Now they're just on to plain old blue or red.
No, I'm a leftist. I'm a radical leftist. I'm not a member of the Democratic Party. I was for many years, and then I quit because they're not good enough for me. The Republicans are really closing the door on any kind of moderation, any kind of intellectualization. The right wing, the radical right wing, really clearly getting close to that big crazy word fascism. They're there and they're proud of it. All right. The people I can deal with are the people who tell me, damn right I'm a racist. You're goddamn right I hate women. You're damn right that we don't want anything to do with LGBTQRSTUVW and then some. We hate them. And that's where Donald Trump can win this election. Because back in 2015, he made it okay for the fringe radical groups to hate people. He said it was all right. And if Donald Trump said it was all right, well, then damn, it must have been all right. And they won in 2016. Now it's 10 times worse. And why do the working class white people who Donald Trump's policies hurt more than anybody else's policies would hurt? Because he has told them, you're not wrong when you hate these people. I hate these people too. And even if he doesn't come right out and say it, they know he hates them. He doesn't like gay people. He doesn't like black people. He doesn't like Mexicans. He doesn't like guys like you who even discuss these issues with guys like me. So more than enough people exist on that far right who will then vote for the far right rather than vote for Democrats.
So on which level of hate are we talking though? Because Dr. Ben Carson was given a job as Secretary of Education, correct?
Yeah.
You give him a job. If I truly hated one group of people, no one's getting a job that looks like that. Is my opinion of the word hate.
Not a matter of looks like that. That's not the point.
If we're talking ball for ball sort of thing, that's what I would.
No, it's not.
Look, Kevin, I like the alliteration.
Yeah, Doctor,
you can rap doo doo. You can rap doo doo, but it is still shit.
I just always found it funny that whenever Donald Trump talked about every person that he called his friend that was black, they were always like the worst people. Like, I know King, and like Martin Luther King, Don King. Oh my God, Don King. What the hell?
All right, here's a song. Here's a song, and you guys, I don't know if you heard this song or not. "The Eve of Destruction" by Barry McGuire. Have you ever heard that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, I have.
Well, go here and listen to it again, because right now, in August 2024, we again are on the eve of destruction. We are not, by any stretch of the imagination, distant from a nuclear strike on the United States of America. It could come from Russia. It could come from North Korea. We also have the Middle East that's blowing up worse than ever before.
Iran is getting crazy right now.
Israel is a nuclear-armed nation. Iran, they're not supposed to have nuclear weapons, but I don't know. If you want to believe that, you believe that. And now we're talking about maybe putting troops into the Middle East. We had troops in Iraq. We had troops in Afghanistan. We got a lot of dead people as a result of that. Our people and their people. And we are now so excited as Democrats, if you're a Democrat, because Beyonce has lent her song Freedom to the Kamala Harris campaign and whoever she chooses to run with her. On the other side, you got Donald Trump, who is better than a Pabst Blue Ribbon beer commercial as he raises his fist and the blood drains from not his face, but down his cheek. And he did it for us. That's what they're saying. He took a bullet for us. Okay, if you believe that, but a lot of people do. And we're in trouble. America's in trouble. And I'm trying to sound the alarm.
So, in your best prediction, who does Kamala Harris pick as her vice president?
I'm too smart to predict. I sat in the courtroom with Michael Jackson for 4 months, every single day. And I watched the jurors and I listened to the testimony. And I visited Neverland and I talked to Michael Jackson, just him and me. He held my hand. Okay?
Yeah.
Never in a million years after Michael Jackson's trial will I predict anything ever again. He was guilty on all 10 counts, and he was found not guilty on all 10 counts. A foolish journey is the journey of speculation. There are 2 candidates right now that all the informed journalists and quality news outlets in America and around the world say Kamala Harris could choose either Governor Josh Shapiro, our governor, or the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. And your guess is as good as mine. If she chooses Walz, I am willing to consider voting for that ticket, depending on what they have to say about corralling and putting Israel on a short leash and stop the genocide in Gaza. If she chooses Josh Shapiro, because of his rabid Zionist supporting belief that Israel can do no wrong and 15,000 children dead in Gaza, it's sad, but comes with what happens after October 7th. I won't vote for the Democratic Party. So that's where we are. And if I don't vote for the Democratic Party, maybe I'll vote for Cornel West and his running mate.
Oh, there's a Kennedy running too on the ballot in Pennsylvania.
He's a complete all right. And if you want him, you got him. That's your right as a dumb American. The masses.
Yeah, the one speech I caught of RFK, right? Now, Steve, I know a lot about cryptocurrency. I heard him talk about cryptocurrency. And when you hear somebody talk about something that you know a lot about and they don't know a lot about, you can pick it out when they don't know what they're talking about.
Does he know or does he not know?
He has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to cryptocurrency.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I rest my case. I also want to be kind to animals, and he did something bad to a bear, and I won't stand for that. But Trump, Kennedy, that could work. All they got to do is take J.D. Vance out on a hunting trip and get him lost in the woods down there in Appalachia.
Are you saying to chain him?
Appalachia. Okay. Anybody that said Appalachia.
J.D. Vance sounds like the magazine you get when you can't afford LL Bean. You know?
Phony hillbilly. Okay. I'm more of a hillbilly because I grew up in the Cove 5 miles from the Appalachian Trail than he is when he went down to visit his ma-pa or man-pa or whatever the hell her name was, grandma. But we're in trouble. America's in trouble. And northeastern Pennsylvania is in trouble. Pittston's in trouble. Dixon City's in trouble. And they're all playing the same provincial games they always play. And so far, you can dress up whatever you want. You can put all the murals in Pittston you want to. And you can open up all the groovy hipster bars for foodies that you want to. And you're not getting to the core of the people who live and die in the neighborhoods in all these little coal towns that are still in trouble. And my city of Scranton, we've got a mayor. I supported Paige Gephardt-Cognetti when she ran because she was smart. She seemed to care, and a lot of people agreed, and she won. Now, she's the biggest opportunist I have seen in northeastern Pennsylvania.
I was actually just going to bring that up.
Yeah.
Let's hit on that little nugget right there. Paige Cognetti. Now, of course, when she was running for mayor, she had huge political ambition. She wants to change the city. She wants to change the tax code. She wanted to change everything that was bad about Scranton and got zero done. Why is that?
I disagree that she got zero done. She has done a relatively decent job for the city. But when she hitched her star onto Joe Biden and all of this hokey, beloved Scranton Joe bullshit, she started to show her true colors. And to be mayor of Scranton, to do a good job, requires far better than Bill Courtwright, the former mayor, who's sitting in a federal prison cell as we speak, doing 5 years into a 7-year term. And I sat with Bill Courtwright at the Democratic.
The proverbial slap on the wrist, by the way.
What's that?
Well, he got the proverbial slap on the wrist.
Who, he did?
Oh, yeah.
7 years in a federal prison, although it wasn't what Bob Cordero at WYLK got. He got 10. He did the 10. He
He did 10. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
That on his head. All right. But he has never acknowledged his guilt, Cordero. But that's another story. Courtwright, former mayor of Scranton, showed what mayors of Scranton are prone to do. Paige Cognetti came in with her Harvard business degree and her intellect, and she's got them both. And she did some good for the city. But the minute she got so opportunistic, the minute she became so much a part of the Joe Biden world, going so far as to travel to Ireland with Biden to engage in that hokey Irish song and dance, stage Irish tribalism, was
at the taxpayer's expense, by the way.
What's that?
On taxpayer expense.
I don't know who picked up the tab for her. And before I said it,
you didn't hear that from me.
No, I need confirmation before I believe you. Okay, no, I'm serious. I don't know. Joe Biden, I know who picked up the tab.
Yeah.
All right. But as far as Paige, I don't know if she paid her way. I don't know who picked up the tab for the hotel. And they're all questions that if you had an aggressive media in Scranton, Pennsylvania, they would have already asked that question. But the Scranton Times-Tribune is owned by a hedge fund, and they don't have a newspaper columnist.
They don't.
They got Chris Kelly.
Go figure. Go figure.
Oh, go figure nothing. I know what this is. They don't know how to do aggressive journalism, and they're not allowed to do it even if they have a bulletin.
100%. Now, this isn't a hit piece on Paige Cognetti and what she's done.
No, I think
what she hasn't done.
I honestly think if somebody
about an overpoverished city that is so hell-bent on tax production that it has overtaxed its citizens from that particular city and has done so much nonprofit work and nonprofit companies to be allowed to overpopulate in a city that can do nothing because it's in such disarray.
I'm blaming younger people for a lot of this because they're buying.
Oh, a ton.
They want their cocktails on the roof, and they want to be able to bring their dogs for puppy cocktails, and they want the foodies, and they want to have these murals. All right. I remember when a woman named Brenda Williams, the Scranton cops shot her dead. 4 cops opened fire on her, a mentally ill woman, naked in her apartment. And they watched as she went into the kitchen. And she came out with a knife. And they opened fire on her when she moved toward them. There's another way to deal with that. I made a suggestion that a mural in Scranton, Pennsylvania, when they wanted to do all these artsy murals, paint Brenda Williams's face on the side of a building. So we never allow police in the city of Scranton to kill a mentally ill, naked woman, a black woman in this case, all white cops. Nobody wanted to talk about that mural. But now we got all these murals that are going to be paintings of people fishing and the snowy mountain caps. I don't want it. That's nice, safe art. And we even have in Lackawanna County a cultural arts director who's making nice money, getting benefits, and she's a nice, safe artist. I don't want safe art. I want edgy art. Go ahead.
Edgy art would be the crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
I need to bring this up, Kevin. I'm sorry.
Right? I mean,
keep religion out of it. That's his problem.
Kevin, I need to bring this up for 1 second.
Yeah, do it up. Yeah.
Do you know the money amount that they paid for the artist for the mural to enter Scranton?
I know it's a lot. I know I read the number, and I know it's too much. And I know I could have got a couple of people that would have done that for a 6-pack or a case of beer. No, a lot of money. $1 million.
Do you know how much they? Do you know the wonderful area of Naog?
Yeah.
Can't afford to open up their pool to the public,
right?
Because they don't have money.
Right. Look, free swimming for kids. I'm for that. I've been for that for 20 years. When I moved back here from California, free swimming for kids. No problem at all. And the neighborhoods, we got boneheads like Senator Marty Flynn, who's a former professional prize fighter, former wannabe mixed martial arts fighter. He had 1 or 2 mixed martial arts fights. He got himself into a situation where he left his loaded firearm in his gun or in his car. Somebody stole it. Then he's down in Harrisburg and somebody tries to stick him up. Big tough guy Marty Flynn pulls the gun that he carries and opened fire. Thankfully, nobody got shot. And those bullets, thankfully, didn't go through a window and kill a child. So this is the kind of brain trust we have in terms of politics in the city of Scranton. Marty Flynn, state senator, Page.
State senator, former boxer.
Well, I just think he's not real smart. That's all I can tell you. And he's got the world.
From a marketing standpoint, you can market him as a good candidate to put out there. I never voted for him. I'll tell you that right now. I could not vote for him for one of the many reasons that you just put. But let me touch back on Paige Cognetti real quick, because she's a very smart person. So whenever you find somebody this smart and she's in charge of Scranton, do you think that for a second, because that's what I think. I think that for all that she knows, she realized there was too many dead ends that she couldn't get done in Scranton. There's nothing more to get done in Scranton besides get reelected for mayor. Since the 1996 Welfare Reform Act came full force into Scranton, where now we're getting outside neighbors in that the police and everybody couldn't really take into consideration. Federal funds weren't there before time. And even if they were, there weren't even close to being enough allocated for increased crime, rehabs that weren't even built at the time in the 90s to appease these incoming people who, by the way, are only there because the rich did not want to lower the rent in New York City. They didn't care about the cost of living. They made these people so damn poor to the point where it caused mental illnesses. And then their big solution was, we'll put them out in a better area, so that way they can get back on their feet. Scranton was one of those areas. Binghamton, Wilkes-Barre, northeastern Pennsylvania alone has been pummeled with outsourced poverty as if we didn't have enough of our own. And federal funding for roads and everything else has been carried out there on a string for state funding to city funding and onward if we aren't appeasing from that idea. So from this point on, if you're the mayor and you see all the money that you can do stuff with, but then all the problems that it comes with on top of it, you're kind of at a dead stand.
See, I don't buy your theory at all. I'm not blaming outsiders because that's the easiest run to run. You're blaming outsiders. You're also blaming black people. That's what you're doing. And you're blaming brown people. You're not talking.
I'm actually blaming the rich, Steve, if you've heard me.
No, you're not talking about white people coming from New York. Okay. It's a code word. You know that, and I know that.
That is not true.
I'm telling you it's true.
I'm telling you it's not true. So there you go. I mean, there we go.
You show me the numbers to support your theory about this crime that resulted after all these New Yorkers came in. And as far as the gangs and the Crips and the Bloods, I haven't bought that from the beginning. I have yet to see evidence, all capital letters, evidence that shows me, that proves to me, that documents the membership in Crips gangs, in Bloods gangs. And that's what the cops, that's what the white right wants to portray. We live in a white city in terms of power. We live with white cops, white firefighters, white city council members. And right now, the only black elected official that I can think of off the top of my head is the guy in the school board, and he's worthless. Okay, he comes with a resume that I suggest everybody check into to see what his background really is. And I welcome that discussion. But Paige Cognetti, if she stays around, and I don't know whether she will or not, might very well have outlived her usefulness because she's right now nothing more than a surrogate for the Biden administration, for the Democratic Party. She's now latched her star onto the Kamala Harris ticket. And I think that Paige has aspirations, as you both acknowledge, and we'll see where it takes her. But the city is suffering because I have a degree in community development. I know what neighborhoods mean. I know that go the neighborhoods, go the city. And these are homegrown neighborhoods, whether they be the remaining white European ethnic neighborhoods like you had when you grew up in Pittston with the Irish and the Italians and the other people, and you have in Dixon City and I have in Scranton. I'm seeing in my Hill Section neighborhood a great influx of people who don't really have a lot of money. You're right when you blame the rich people who own houses they don't fix, who rent to people that they take advantage of. I agree with all of that, but I'm not going to blame the people coming in from elsewhere, including Mexicans and Latinos.
When crime happens, Steve, crime can happen racially against people that are coming here. That is included when I say the word crime. When I blame the rich, the reason I'm doing it is because a standard was set back in 1992 of what was needed for them to raise their property evaluation so they can borrow back off of buildings and the liquidity that they have in them. So it was just a money scheme so that way the rich could get richer and they could ignore the poor and push them off to the side.
I agree with you there. The rich always get richer and the poor always get poorer. And the money that's being handed out in the city of Scranton from the federal government as a result of the federal program that came in the aftermath of COVID. And that's a whole other issue, COVID, that people aren't taking seriously anymore. And we need to, because that has a terrible effect on everything and will continue to have a terrible effect on everything, whether it be the economy, people's health, their life expectancy, healthcare, what have you.
New variant is out, and
big time.
I wanted to touch on just to switch things up just a little bit. Your weed, wine, and magic.
Weed, wine, magic.
Weed, wine, magic.
Weed, wine, magic is the title of the new novel.
Love it. Love it.
Release this fall. We're in the process of planning a California book tour. We set the novel on the Central Coast where we used to live, where we used to work. And it's a wild run through the jungle of cannabis-infused wine, as well as magic and the mostly Mexican culture of La Santa Muerte, the death saint, Jesus Malverde, who is essentially the Mexican Robin Hood, and Isla Mujeres resident Ixchel, the Maya moon goddess. And we were at Isla Mujeres, the island of women, a couple months ago, where the Maya culture still permeates in the symbolism and the influence of the great Maya civilization off the Yucatan Peninsula onto this island. So this book encompasses all of that mysticism, as well as a group called the Dunites, who used to live in the sand dunes back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s on the Central Coast. And they were an artist colony. They were writers and painters and musicians and visionaries. And that still exists to a certain extent, but it's a wild, wild novel. It's a sequel to my first novel, Blood Red Syrah, that introduced readers to Jesus Malverde, and a wild ride.
Yeah, very cool. I see the Scranton City News. That's all you, am I right?
It's me and my editor, Dr. Stephanie Bressler.
Nice.
And I'm married to my editor. And what we did, because of the absence of aggressive journalism in Scranton, Pennsylvania, specifically I can't call it a daily paper because for now we still subscribe. We didn't get a paper today, a hard paper I can hold my hand and read. It doesn't come out on Monday. And they have their online version. But in the absence of aggressive journalism in the Scranton Times-Tribune, mostly in the absence of a real news columnist, I took it upon myself to do what an American patriot has to do. If you remember, not necessarily you were there, but if you remember reading about Thomas Paine during the Revolutionary War put together a pamphlet called Common Sense. And often they would hand them out in front of pubs. People would read them in the pubs. And that's the essence of what news is. So, in the spirit of Thomas Pain in the Ass, Revolutionary War hero, that put together Common Sense, we put together the Scranton City News. I write a news column based on what I feel has to be said at the time, and it keeps my hand in journalism and keeps me credentialed. So the politicians can't keep me out of giving me press credentials up to and including the White House.
This is a short blurb from July 28th, 2024. Did a Secret Service sniper hold Thomas Matthew Crooks in his rifle sights but not pull the trigger until after Crooks opened fire on former President Donald Trump and people around him at a Butler, Pennsylvania political rally? Did that Secret Service sniper wait for authorization to shoot that came only after Crooks wounded Trump?
All good journalistic questions I want answered. Whether the questioner is a journalist or a member of Congress or a member of the Secret Service staff that is investigating, the FBI, whoever, I want those questions answered. The reason I raised those specific questions, this is where not just commentary, but good street level reporting comes into play. Those questions were put into my mind by a source who is very close to someone in law enforcement who talked about conversations with cops on the scene at the time of the assassination attempt. So what I did was, because I couldn't report that it happened, I don't know if it happened the way I asked it, but I want the questions answered. And since nobody will answer my questions, and most politicians won't take your questions, the White House won't answer, U.S. Senator Bob Casey refuses to talk to me, won't meet with me, and he lives right down the street from me.
Yeah, what's up with Bob Casey? This guy has been absent and just absentee for years and years when it comes to any leadership from his position.
He's a powerful U.S. Senator who does what he's told and it serves the purpose of the party. And Scranton, Pennsylvania has that kind of power, especially because of Joe Biden's nefarious connection to the city. I interviewed Joe Biden on the radio one night, and it was unbelievable. He was still a U.S. Senator. He wasn't even the vice president. And it's a great story how we got him on a phone. A buddy of mine who's dead just stuck a phone in his hand when Biden was signing his dull autobiography at a bookstore that then was on Kaiser Avenue. And Biden come on my show. And Biden said to me, Senator Biden, you know, Steve, when I'm alone in my Senate office and I feel a little homesick, I thought, oh no, where's he going? I turn on the radio and I listen to you. And I thought, you lying, dirty dog, you. You never heard of me in your entire life.
Never. Zero.
Now. And he's lying through his teeth. 2011, fast forward, he's the vice president. The flood hits. I'm in Duryea in a guy's house, Jimmy Pliska. And Jimmy Pliska now has been turned from a loyal Democrat into a right-wing fanatic in terms of his conservative willingness to fight any Democrat or any liberal. And Joe Biden stood in Jimmy Pliska's house and embarrassed Jimmy Pliska, who had lost his house to a flood for the second time, and started to cry and said, I can't rebuild. And Joe Biden embarrassed him by saying, would your grandfather give up? I thought somebody needs to slap him. And then when we stood in the back of the house and I stood glaring at Joe Biden, he looked at me and he got the message. Something was up with me. And he said, you can smile, Dr. Death. And I looked at Joe Biden and I thought, I better get out of here before I create.
Before he calls you corn pop.
Split, man. Oh, corn pop. That's another story. I won't even get into corn pop voting.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Corn pop was a bad dude. So it's just sick. And the Democratic Party in Scranton, Pennsylvania has the kind of control where they can really, truly do some good. And I don't know if they're going to blow this.
If you could pick anybody on that stage while Joe Biden was primarying against such people as an Andrew Yang, a Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, of course, gotta love me some Bernie. How did the DNC end up just pushing Joe right through the area?
Money, says the OJs. It's all about money and power. And that's what we've got now. We've got donor fights. Who likes Josh Shapiro? Who likes Kamala Harris? Who likes this? Who likes that? It's all money. We have a woman in Scranton right now, one of the most powerful women in the Democratic Party, I believe, Virginia McGregor. And Virginia is a big money raiser for the Democratic Party. She is on the Democratic, I think she's a member of the Democratic National Committee. She's the finance or the treasurer, something. She's a big money player. And she has fundraisers at her nice big mansion up in Greenridge, where Joe Biden's birthplace house was. But what I'm saying is, she also has a big job at the Geisinger Medical College. She's on the board of directors at Geisinger. You got money, you got health care, you got all the players, Bobby Casey and Matt Cartwright and Paige Cognetti, all playing it. And then you got the crazy right wing, okay? What's his name? Teddy, what's his name? Selling the survival food that Marky Denenbaum was, you know who I'm talking about? Teddy, I can't think of his name. But anyway, you got that crazy right wing. Anything can happen. That's what I've learned about politics.
Now, I do smell something in the air, and it's probably from the city of Scranton. And the only reason why I say that is, in particular, there are 3 major manufacturers, maybe even 2, but let's say 3 from the city of Scranton that make it what it is. And the big thing is General Dynamics. That particular corporation owns several buildings, manufacturers, both not only tank shells or the ammunition shells, but they also make tank parts, as well as many other, things in the industrial wheel. Mm-hmm. The other big one is Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin also has several things in and around the city as well. The other big one is Toby Hanna. Just because it's not necessarily in this area, I'm going to lump it in, because there are a lot of things that go within Toby Hanna that also come from the city of Scranton as well. Having known that and having that be, is that one of the main reasons why the city of Scranton is such a juggernaut in the political game that everybody is talking about?
It's a big piece of it. It's all related. And Matt Cartwright, U.S. Representative Congress Matt Cartwright, whose commercials say, "I work for you," is the darling of the defense contractors. Matt Cartwright is the middleman between those big profit margins that those merchants of death make. And I happen to see that the old medical plant, that's now a General Dynamics plant along Interstate 81. If you look over where the medical plant used to be, that was investigated up, down, inside, and out for a variety of reasons, that's now General Dynamics. So Bobby Casey is a big supporter. And these people employ local workers. Toby Hanna draws probably loads of workers from not just the area, but Scranton as well.
Oh, yeah.
The military is still regarded with a romanticized, say no criticism about the military. You could be Lieutenant Calley, who just died recently in April, responsible for the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, and they'd be telling you, we support our veterans, respect our veterans. Not all military veterans deserve respect. That's why they got Leavenworth, and it's full of military people.
Yeah, war crimes are committed, but here's one for you. Pennsylvania is also deemed the potato chip capital. So big chip companies are.
Oh, who knew?
just loading people up with cholesterol and fat and salt, of course. It's it's a big thing in Pennsylvania. Now, Steve, on the warmongering part of things, we've had so many war criminals in office as we speak, it doesn't even feel like the Geneva Convention's even a thing anymore. It's more like a stomped over symbolic piece of paper that George W. Bush first started to wipe his ass over with the whole Iraqi War Freedom Act and then threw himself into Afghanistan with absolutely no mission. So I feel your pain on that one. It is just you should have seen Halliburton stock, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, just go skyrocketing when, obviously they somehow won 90% of all contracts up there. And then who came in second? General Electric, both.
And we didn't
General Dynamics, yeah.
We didn't even get into climate change. We didn't even get into fossil fuels. We didn't even talk about gas and oil. We didn't talk about coal. We didn't talk about the extreme heat that's been coming and will continue to come, the horrible extreme weather in Florida, the floods, the hurricanes, everything coming our way. And people still want to argue about whether extreme weather and climate change
is real
and whether we have something to do with it. So
well, you have firsthand experience when it comes to California. When they set environmental standards there, the smog went away.
I'm a great believer in regulation, but it has to be done correctly. And that's a big ask, as they say. I fight government all the time. I'm anti-bad government, just like I'm anti-bad cop and anti-bad military veteran. I am pro-good government. I still believe government can work, and I still believe regulations can work, and I still believe in helping each other prevent gun deaths. I still believe in the Constitution. I'm an American patriot who believes in the promise of America, but I also have spent far too much time living in northeastern Pennsylvania and elsewhere and writing about corrupt government, writing about corrupt politicians and corrupt business people, because they go hand in hand. We live in a corrupt nation. All this romantic mythology of symbolic politics can kill you. And as long as more and more people like country music and like Pabst Blue Ribbon beer and like shooting guns on the 4th of July and don't think about a bigger picture and be willing to sacrifice, that's a big word in America. Who's willing to sacrifice for a better America? I am, and I try to. Something as simple as not eating meat for 30 years has helped, I believe, the environment. Something as simple as opposing the landfill that Louis de Naples controls, that has such a political impact, as does Louis de Naples for decades. If you look at the relationships between the people who were gangsters, who were business people, who were accused of crimes, who pleaded guilty to crimes, look at Rob Miracle, who is the biggest commercial real estate developer maybe in northeastern Pennsylvania and beyond. He did a year in the federal penitentiary.
Or even the arrogance of Judge Chivarella. Remember, the original sentencing for him was 88 months, and he smugly enough said, I'm going to appeal that and ask for a lesser sentence.
28 years. He's sitting
and instead he got 28 years
in a federal prison right now. I was in the courtroom the day he received his sentence, and math is not my strong point, but I tried to figure it out because I knew it was big. And the same goes for,
his original sentence was a lot lighter.
Oh yeah, but they pushed it and it blew back on them. I actually thought that the sentence was too much, but I understand why the sentence came down the way it did. Conahan, his partner, 17 years. But Miracle, the money man, he got one, and he did one, and he come out, and they love him, and the golf tournaments, and the golf.
Smelling like a rose.
Oh yeah, he came out of it no problem.
That's where we live. And that's where your point about rich people is right on the mark. And that's where our discussion, the three of us, about how we need to pay closer attention to who's pulling whose strings, but we don't have the people holding them accountable. And that's where the press is so important. And you guys are important. You pod guys are important to get in there and shake it up and rock and roll. And then, yeah.
Can I add one big thing? Now, when you say not necessarily us in general, but as a people, of course, people should be more aware of their surroundings. They should be more aware of what's going on. Yeah. They should be more aware of what their money is going to. They should be more aware of what people are doing, when they're doing it, and how they're doing it. The information is out there, but I think people don't care. And it sounds true, and it sounds honest. But if I gave you $5 right now, Steve, I don't care what you do with it, but I gave you $5, and I know that I've given you $5. What you do with it is your choice. But you know that I've given you $5, and if you spent it on, I don't know, a new haircut, let's say, which you wouldn't do.
Hey, my style.
Still saying, if you spent it on a haircut, and I was like, huh, Steve, that's unlike you. Why would you do that? How does that coincide with people being awake and caring about their surroundings? Because they don't. And that's a sad realization.
I mean,
people
I think
don't care because they've been accustomed to just doing as they do and not following up.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, even like, for example's sake, right? We haven't evolved to the point of not having to use money. The old saying is if money were never invented, we'd have no excuse but to make the correct decision. Because money is on the end of all addiction, all bad decisions.
Who quoted that, Hitler?
There's money there. Well, just if we were all to get together and say, let's get rid of the money, let's get rid of the idea, make sure everyone has their fair share, you'd see $1 trillion spent on one person suggesting the idea, saying that's communism, and put up a picture of Adolf Hitler and say that's basically the same guy right there. It reminds me of an old Star Trek episode. I don't know if you're a Star Trek guy there, Steve.
No.
So it's a nice little scene there. The Next Generation. Captain Picard's ship finds a ship full of frozen people from the past of the 90s. And they thaw them out and that. And one guy says, I wish to speak to the captain of this ship. He says, I need to know where my bank account is, where my lawyer is. And when Picard comes up to him eventually, he says, I want to speak to my lawyer. He says, well, your lawyer's dead. And he says, well, I want my bank account should have a lot of money in it. And Picard has a grin on his face and says, oh, yeah, I remember. I've read about the concept of money, and they've gotten rid of it because people couldn't stop making the wrong decisions while it was dangled over them. It was a profound moment where it makes you realize the only reason people inherently want to do something terrible is because of something we simply made up one day and told everyone it was valuable. It's a trick. That's all I got to say about that.
I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
I'm not a money guy. I'm not real interested in finance. I'm not real interested in the whole Bitcoin issue. I don't follow that. That's just not what appeals to me. And I'm not discounting what you're saying, discounting the importance of what you're saying. I just see hands-on from the ground up problems and trouble. And I don't see us getting any better. I do believe a lot of people, more and more people, are lazy. More and more young people, I think, are lazy in the context of learning. College doesn't mean what it's supposed to mean anymore. The dumbing down of intellectual pursuit, in my opinion, is sounding the death knell for a lot. I see difficulty across the board where the elite will continue to send their children to private schools and to high-priced colleges that they can afford, while middle-class people and
Die out completely.
people are stuck. A lot of people aren't interested because they're struggling to survive. They're working 3 jobs. They're not getting paid what they deserve. They're not getting the benefits that they really do deserve, that I believe America owes them. And I do believe America owes people a certain standard of living. And that's where wages matter and benefits matter. And rich people who run corporations, whatever the corporations are, who are making such an outrageous profit, and then tell you how much they value their employees and that they're family, and they're not. It's a hustle. But I'm on my way out. I'm in the final quarter of this game. At 73 years of age, the clock is ticking. I'm in the final quarter. You guys you still got some time on the clock. But I do not envy people with children and grandchildren, and then the next generations coming along with everything that we're talking about that no one seems inclined to really truly solve. And that's the trouble in northeastern Pennsylvania, in Scranton, in Pennsylvania. America's too damn big. I've said this all along. We have too many individual interests that are tribal, that are nativist. But I do see a split down the country, and it is the Trump side, and it is mostly the white side, and it is mostly a side that feels aggrieved. And then you got this side of people coming across the border, people trying to get into America, trying to believe in the dream, trying to do what immigrants have always tried to do. My grandfather came from Ireland and worked in the coal mines in Scranton for 45 years. And what did he get for it? Black lung. And he died. But he died at 81. He had a good life, but at the same time, he had a hard life. My cousins have mostly done really, really well for themselves. I've done really well for myself. But that's not the point. It's what about the people who don't have any advantages, who don't have any opportunity? And I'm not buying that anybody can grow up to be president. I'm not buying that you work real hard and it's going to pay off. Too many people work real hard all their lives, and the only payoff they get is when they die. And that's a fact of America.
I'm going to add 2 things right there, Steve. I particularly work 2 jobs all the time. Kevin, also the same way. Working two jobs just to scrape by, living not necessarily paycheck to paycheck, but you know what? You live comfortably for yourself. I want to put out these numbers because I had to look them up, and I was a little bewildered. And just to bring this out, nonprofits in the city of Scranton and Wilkes-Barre exceed 3,129 organizations between Scranton and Wilkes-Barre. They employ 32,164 people, and big number, they earn more than 3 billion with a B in revenue every year. Now, for an impoverished, and I love that word because it always gets thrown up into political terms. Impoverished. City of Scranton, take for instance. They have assets, including that 3 billion, up to $5 billion in assets. So that includes rental properties, buildings, nonprofit corporations that have their particular buildings as well. as well as other facilities. So that, in the long run, is not necessarily what's killing those particular cities, but it is. Just like to throw those numbers out for you.
Well, taxes are important to help maintain the foundation of the city and the city services. When you look at the sale of the proposed sale, whenever it comes down, of the 3 hospitals that used to be owned and operated by Commonwealth, that's going to a nonprofit.
Which, by the way, just came last week. And
that's tax money that's going to be lost. And then they're going to go to the nonprofit and say, oh, please give us what pilot payments, payment in lieu of taxes. And
I love it.
Oh, we'll be happy to give you, we'll write you a check for whatever. And that's where a major problem comes into play. And a lot of tax breaks that are given to these businesses and a lot of the money that's distributed. It's a
vicious circle.
Yeah, vicious. Not good. But Scranton, I don't think, is doing as good as the beautiful people like to tell us it's doing. And I feel bad for a lot of people in all these little one-time coal towns, from Forest City to Tower City, the whole way down to Schuylkill County. I feel bad for so many people who are coming into this community to live, whether they be immigrants or people from elsewhere. I feel bad for younger people who don't have the family connections, the political connections, don't have the money to firm up their entry into college or the workforce or what have you. I feel real bad because I think too many people in our communities are wanting. They have no power. They're powerless people. And so many of those people don't vote and won't vote. They don't trust the system. They don't trust the government with good reason. But
every good intention.
But where
paved with gold.
Here's the outreach from the nice liberal Democratic Party to really go in and to help. They'll tell you that they're helping. I'm saying it's not good enough. The Republicans, I got major problems with Republican public policy. And the right wing, I got major problems. I understand them. I get it. I came out of that. I know what that means. So I can have those conversations. But I see harm being done to good Americans, good people in this country who deserve better. And that's why all the politics and all the fuss tomorrow over the rally in Philadelphia to be with Kamala Harris and whoever her running mate is, where we go from there? Where do we go from there? And they'll be here. Trump will be here. Kamala Harris will be here.
The greatest thing that you've ever said is keep people accountable.
Yeah, you've got to hold people accountable, but so many people are afraid to speak up. They can't speak up. I used to say to people, if you're able to speak up, speak up. But so many people can't. So many people are fearful, and with good reason. Their jobs, their bosses, yeah.
I need to cut you off because we're running out of time, unfortunately. But Kevin brings something to the table for every guest in particular.
I have to ask you, Steve. You've had a long career that continues to elevate the valley and yourself to new plateaus and to new heights every day.
Spanning the ages.
Spanning the ages. Would you consider being on the Podguyz Podcast the peak of your career?
No.
Ah!
Oh.
See, at least he's honest.
Does that answer the question? No. Not even close. And the reason is this.
Tried.
The reason is this. You are a button on the vest that makes the suit that helps my style create the place for where I go from here.
We made it on the suit, Tony. You hear that?
Made it on the suit.
We're a patch.
No, it's all on
We're
where the button's located.
No. What's important is that right now, tonight, you are the pinnacle of my career because we're having the conversation right now. And you can't compare what we're doing right now in this time to anything that's gone in the past. I've been really fortunate to get involved in a lot of issues. I've been really fortunate to travel around the world. I've been a lot of places, and we've done a lot of things, and we live happy, good, solid lives. But to express the creativity that goes on in my mind through my writing mostly, I appreciate and value immensely the opportunity, the chance to share this with you guys, you podcast guys, because you are interested and you do matter immensely to giving people a platform and giving yourselves a platform. We're all in agreement that the more platforms, the better off everybody is. And I am a great proponent of free speech and free expression, and we'll leave it at that.
Now, we talked earlier, Steve. Not everybody should have the freedom of speech.
Says who?
Because everybody should have the freedom of speech.
Yeah.
I think it kind of gets to the point. Well,
pattern.
I think it kind of gets to the point where Alex Jones era of talking about interdimensional vampires that are
To deal with all that. When Alex Jones defamed people and harmed people irreparably, the court system worked and took him out.
Yeah.
And the laws exist. So when I said to you, I didn't know who paid for Paige Cognetti to go to Ireland. I said that because I don't want to defame her as an elected official. I don't want to be inaccurate. I want to know what's true. That's one of the biggest questions anybody can ask. Is it true? And you have to work to find out. So free speech already has parameters. Slander, libel, defamation of character. That's all there to curtail the damage speech can do. So it's paramount to work hard if you take yourself seriously and want to be taken seriously, to be accurate, to do the best you can do to find out what is true, and to listen to each other. We're listening to each other. We're listening to what each other is saying tonight.
True.
that is true. Yeah.
And
The Outlaw Steve Corbett.
not everybody can be an outlaw, though. Keep that in mind.
True.
Not everybody can be an outlaw. So appreciate them when you got them. And I value our opportunity tonight.
Now Sparky may not be here, but he was called the tickling teddy bear for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Who the hell is Sparky?
Oh,
Exactly.
God.
Exactly. Who the hell is
I don't even
he?
know.
Sparky is normally our third entity here.
He's our third wheel.
Like an imaginary friend?
He's like a wheel on a motorcycle that doesn't hit the ground.
Does he need
You know.
bail money? We don't know.
Maybe.
He may.
Maybe.
I
Big
also,
maybe.
I also ask people to go to my website, read what I write, contact me if you have any questions, if you want to discuss anything with me. I'm an easy guy to get in touch with, and express yourself.
You're not hiding anywhere.
No, never did, never will.
Never did.
Never did, never will. And people need to exercise the power of their mind and create the power of their mind and strengthen the power of their mind, mostly by reading and thinking. So all those hits I gave to those hipsters who are too hip for their own good, you deserve it.
By the way, you can go to gonzotoday.com.
No, I don't write for them anymore.
No, they're done.
No, man, they weren't up to my standards. Gonzo Today.
Oh, Gonzo
Absolutely
God.
I wrote for them for about a year. Good nationwide magazine that had great potential. They weren't up to my standard. So you go to the outlawcorbett.com and you read these novels, and we got a new one coming out in the autumn, and I'll be doing other appearances, and we'll be holding readings, and anybody who wants to ask me anything, you ask away, because the truth shall set you free. I told Jesus that. He uses it every now and then.
Didn't the Beatles say all we need is love?
That's good. All you need is love. It depends how you define love. All right?
One of the featured books here is Patty's Day in Trump Town.
That's a great one. And for Trump running, this is a great one. The underbelly of Irish America, my tribe, and how the Irish guys who are bigoted lunatics would do anything to put Trump back in the White House. This was a book about trying to get him in 2020, which he lost. But the book applies to what's happening today. The Irish guys in Luzerne County put Trump over the top in 2016, and they wanted to get him reelected, and they failed. So now they are not happy lads. That's a good one. Patty's Day in Trump Town, Blood Red Syrah, Weed Wine Magic, theoutlawcorbett.com. What else can I tell you?
How do you feel like your skills are between you and Steven Seagal?
Oh, Seagal is Seagal
I just thought I'd bring it up.
That is a great question, Tony. That might be my
Maybe
favorite
for another
question.
train
time.
the same art. We train the same arts. Aikido.
That's true. Both in Aikido.
He's a higher ranked practitioner. I respected him when he was practicing and didn't turn into the public menace that he is today. He has defamed his arts. He has disrespected his arts, and I got no respect for Seagal. So that's
Boom in your face, Seagal.
Boom! You heard it. Bring it any day. No.
all right.
Guys, we are the Podguyz Podcast. I am Tony Kaz.
Evan Neary.
Of course, speaking on behalf of the Sparky, Le Picasso. He'll be back soon. Steve Corbett, the Outlaw. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good talking to everybody.
We appreciate your time and effort and breath.
Anytime.
Sir.
Anything,
One breath.
anything I can do for you, let me know.
Perfect. Make sure you guys tune in every Monday, 10:15 Eastern Standard Time. We're the Podguyz Podcast. Make sure you like, share, click below, subscribe, do all the things.
Do all the
of
things.
them. All of them. Have a great night, guys. Bye.
See ya.